All right, Steve, thank you. How would you like to live in a beautiful home without ever having to pay rent or a mortgage?
Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Yeah. A mother and son are accused of operating a scheme targeting unsuspecting homeowners all over St. Louis. The court judgments are piling up, and so are the evictions, but it's not stopping them.
News 4 investigator Chris Nakis confronts the pair some are calling serial squatters.
It's moving day for Barbarita Jimerson and her son Jordan Harris. They don't seem to like cameras.
Back off of me, back off of me, back off of me.
And neither does their unidentified sidekick. Sir, how are you involved in this?
Your mama called me over here.
This man did everything he could to block our cameras, but he couldn't hide the public records that reveal a decade of judgments, evictions, and unhappy homeowners like Jeff Kaufman.
They present themselves really well.
Kaufman is the latest victim. He owns this recently remodeled house in Hazelwood, and in July he thought he found the perfect buyer.
They had a pre-approval from a legitimate lender.
He says Harris even signed this agreement to purchase the home for $279,000, the full asking price. But with a caveat, he needed to take possession of the property before the official closing date. For Kaufman, no problem. He drew up a temporary lease that would expire once the deal closed.
They were very knowledgeable with it. I mean, there was no any kind of indication of any deception.
Kaufman says he received $500 cash to start the lease, and that was it. The deal never closed. Rent was never paid. Kaufman lost thousands month after month before taking Harris to court. He says Harris tried to argue the recently remodeled home with granite countertops and vaulted ceilings was uninhabitable. Kaufman won the case, a judgment for more than $7,500. 6 months after it all began, Harris was forced out by the courts. For Harris and his mother, moving days like this are anything but rare. Kaufman isn't the first homeowner to regret letting them in, or the second, or the fifth, or the 10th. According to Missouri court records, Harris and Jimerson have collectively been sued at least 16 times by landlords from Lake St. Louis to Brentwood, St. Charles to Florissant.
That can only lead me to believe that this is a serial, these are serial squatters. They're professional squatters is what we call them.
Some years they moved twice. It's been going on since 2009.
Back up, 50 feet, grab it, back up.
Hey, Barb, can we talk to you about why you guys have so many lawsuits against you guys? Don't touch me. Barb, can we talk to you, please?
No comment.
I've been in this rental business for 30-plus years, and this is the first time I've ever seen something so manipulative.
Bob Lakowski was victim number 13.
Lasting 7, 8 months and costing me, 8, 9, 10 grand, whatever it cost, and they just lived there for free.
He rented to Harris and Jimerson, then sued to get them out of his Brentwood condo in 2017. Do you feel like it was deliberate?
Yes. They had no intention of paying.
I would describe them as people who have a system figured out.
Harry Fry was victim number 6. He obtained a court judgment for nearly $7 grand in 2013, and like so many others, evicted both of them.
They tried every trick in the book to try to keep it from taking place, but the judge was very firm and he stood his ground.
But what really stands out to these homeowners, the mother and son wanted luxury and recently remodeled properties. Jeff Kaufman showed them 2 houses.
They turned down the 1,000-square-foot home in Florissant and instead opted for to purchase my 3,600 living space square home in Hazelwood.
Worth a lot more money.
Worth more than double.
Are you guys planning to do this to somebody else? I asked that question because this St. Louis County real estate agent, who doesn't want their identity revealed, recently heard from Harris.
He said a contract fell through on a house in Chesterfield.
Harris offered this agent a familiar deal, and he put it in a text message.
Okay, do you know if we offered full price and didn't ask for closing costs, would they do possession prior?
There was no deal. Another agent in St. Charles County showed Harris a home listed for more than $400 grand. Harris provided this pre-approval letter, but the lender told me this letter is no longer valid.
So they know how to play the system.
All of it baffles previous homeowners and even observers. When professional movers showed up to empty out the pair's most recent home, beautiful furnishings, including a new pool table, were on display for everyone to see, including this neighborhood trustee.
How can you afford all this lavish furniture and not to pay for where you live?
Jordan, those questions remain unanswered. I wanted to ask Harris about his 2015 bankruptcy, where the courts discharged $124 grand worth of debt, including judgments from previous landlords, collection agencies, even furniture rent-a-centers. But when he wasn't denying his identity,
I'm not Jordan.
he was calling the police.
They're on their way to authority.
We just got a call that there's some sort of harassment going on.
Harassment, okay.
While they're trying to move out of the house.
But after calling out officers, Harris refused to answer the door.
I can't necessarily make them leave the property if they have permission to be here.
Moments before the sheriff was scheduled to force them out, this unidentified man, Harris and Jimerson, pushed some belongings on a neighbor's property, then loaded up and left. And boy, does someone have a heavy foot. You want to see this shut down?
I do. I wouldn't be speaking with you right now if I didn't desperately want to see this put to a stop.
So where are they now? We found Jimerson employed at a big box store out in West St. Louis County, and one victim recently attempted to serve Harris with an order of protection at a collection agency of all places. Harris called our newsroom earlier this week. He chalks up these evictions to hard times and a fire, but he couldn't say where that fire occurred. He also said his paycheck was garnished, giving some money back to the victims. Now the Missouri Attorney General wants to hear from anyone that might be a victim. As for Harris, he told me he's calling 60 Minutes. If the network decides to take on his story, it would air right here on News 4. Chris Nagus, News 4 Investigates.